And I personally resent it.
Hank, let me ask you, you're a defense attorney, you defend people like Ted Bundy. Would you believe him?
Do I believe that?
Would you believe a person like that? Could he have conned you, in other words, convinced you that he was...
I'm troubled with the basic premise, which backs up even before what Ray said, and that is, do you ask a homicidal maniac, why are you a homicidal maniac? And of course, defer to Dr. Miller and the psychiatric end of that. The first segment, we heard it was pornography. The second segment, even though he keeps professing to take responsibility, then it's pornography and alcohol. And I think we picked up in this third part, it was televised violence, and especially cable television. My recollection is that cable television didn't proliferate at the time he was doing most of these killings, so I have a hard time accepting that. Okay. And I go back to what I said earlier are a lot of words, and it's almost like he's going through, when Dr. Miller said he'd be a good lawyer. He's going through the motions of these would be good things to say now, but I have difficulty accepting the truthfulness of them, Dr. Dobson, or that he's capable of giving an explanation for why he did what he did. And I haven't accepted anything so far.
Dr. Dobson?
Well, as I suppose a man is entitled to make a last statement, and that's what he was doing. This is what he said. I have, the first letter that I received from him in August of 1988 was about a 15-page letter regarding his concerns about pornography. He was very informed. He quoted many studies. He'd read the entire Attorney General's Commission on Pornography, which is nearly 2,000 pages. I believe the man was genuinely concerned about that, but please understand, again, I'm not here to say that that excuses his behavior. I hope that's clear.
We have to pause here for a moment. We'll be right back with more, so please don't go away. Interview with Ted Bundy to show you, and we'd like to bring that to you now, and then we'll close out our discussion. Here's the final segment of the Ted Bundy interview.
Do you deserve the punishment the state has inflicted upon you?
That's a very good question, and I'll answer very honestly. I don't want to die. I'm not going to kid you. I'll kid you not. I deserve certainly the most extreme punishment society has, and I think society deserves to be protected from me and from others like me. That's for sure. I think what I hope will come of our discussion is I think society deserves to be protected from itself, because as we've been talking, there are forces at loose in this country, particularly again this kind of violent pornography, where on the one hand well-meaning, decent people will condemn behavior of a Ted Bundy while they're walking past a magazine rack full of the very kinds of things that send young kids down the road to be Ted Bundys. That's the irony. We're talking here not just about more. What I'm talking about is going beyond retribution, which is what people want with me, going beyond retribution and punishment, because there is no way in the world that killing me is going to restore those beautiful children to their parents and correct and soothe the pain. But I'll tell you, there are lots of other kids playing in streets around this country today who are going to be dead tomorrow and the next day and the next day and next month, because other young people are reading the kinds of things and seeing the kinds of things that are available in the media today.
Ted, as you would imagine, there's tremendous cynicism about you on the outside, and I suppose for good reason. I'm not sure that there's anything that you could say that people would believe. Some people would believe.
Yeah.
And yet, you told me last night, and I have heard this through our mutual friend John Tanner, that you have accepted the forgiveness of Jesus Christ and are a follower and a believer in him. Do you draw strength from that as you approach these final hours?
I do. I can't say that
it's going to be
being
easy.
in the valley of the shadow of death is something that I've become all that accustomed to, and that I'm strong and nothing's bothering me. Listen, it's no fun. It gets kind of lonely, and yet I have to remind myself that every one of us will go through this someday in one way or another, and countless millions who have walked this earth before us have. So this is just an experience which we all share, and yeah, here I am.
I'd like to ask Mr. Delaney a question. The death penalty, the execution of Mr. Bundy today, the other executions that have come before, the other executions will come after it. Is that a deterrent toward the next Bundy?
I think one of the striking things that I caught from watching Ted Bundy tonight was he was one of the few people that I've observed that has faced execution that I think could truly appreciate what that meant the end of his life, that was retribution for his crime. The thing that is amazing to me is, you know, again, it's been 11 years since he's come to this stage. You know, what would have happened if it was a viable alternative, if that would have caught him, if he would have tried to turn for some help, if he would have tried to catch himself somewhere down the line. And the 11 years that we've gone through sort of a form of legal terrorism to keep him from facing that penalty, I don't know if in the present form if it can deter other people, but I think this man can appreciate what he's facing.
Okay. Before we close this out, we'd like to just kind of have a brief 1 or 2 word description of Ted Bundy as you've seen him on tape and from what you know about him, and in your case, Dr. Dobson, from having seen him in person.
It's difficult to put anything into one word, especially as complex as this, but
well,
I would use the word a tragedy in his own life, and especially a tragedy to all those innocent people.
Dr. Miller?
I'll try and be a little more clinical. I think that absent having performed an examination on him, but on the basis of the information provided, he appears to fit the pattern of a character disorder of psychopathic type.
Mr. Cox?
I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know how to analyze just on that limited portion and what the media has written about Mr. Bundy in the last several years. My interest in what I was waiting for was not only the explanation about the deaths, etc., but what about the explanation to rationalize the total arrogant attitude for the several years, too? Because does that blamed on pornography, alcohol, etc.? And so I defer to a psychiatrist to figure that out.
It's an evil man. Evil is the word that strikes me.
Evil. Mr. Markey in Tallahassee.
I learned nothing about Mr. Bundy that ameliorated the enormity of his act. I believe he's an evil man, and I believe he got the appropriate penalty.
So do I.
What will you do with this interview that you have? I mean, other than the fact you're showing it here.
The tape is made available to anybody who wants to air it. It's made available to the networks, to local affiliates.
But the deal is they have to show 29 minutes or 2 one-minute segments, right?
Yes, there were provisions that Ted Bundy put on it. There were also arrangements with his lawyer and our lawyer, so that was part of it.
Okay. Well, up next, some final thoughts. We'll be right back.
This chapter in the case of Ted Bundy, actually, he was charismatic, he was charming, and he was deadly, certainly. But he left this world leaving more questions than he did answers. Why did he do what he did? What role, if any, does society play for failing to recognize a Ted Bundy for what he was? Could we have recognized the Ted Bundy for what he was? And could these senseless tragedies have somehow been prevented?
He also showed us something about ourselves, the shameful carnival atmosphere in Stark this morning with cheering crowds and fireworks. Then there were the delays, the frustration of the families of the victims, the people of Florida and the nation, the cries of those trying to stop capital punishment, although in this case, those cries were greatly diminished.
The interview you have seen in this past hour was fascinating, it was frightening, and in many ways it was depressing. It shows us a picture of a man who could not control himself, a man investigators close to the case characterized as the devil himself. But through it all, seeing beyond the glib answers and Bundy's last-ditch effort to be understood, one thing seems brightly etched in the dark abyss that was his life. Ted Bundy died today as he had lived, an enigma. Good night.